Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to A&M Commerce. Charlie Chitwood here. I am joined by two giants, not only in Lion athletics, but in the sports world here and all around the world. To my right, which is your left, John Carlos, who is an Olympic runner and made a little bit of a name for himself and others down in Mexico City in 1968 and beyond. To my left, your right, is Jim Thrower, whom, if you've listened to Lion Athletics over the last decade or so, you probably heard me with Jim a time or two. But a Lion once, then an Eagle, and then a Lion again, and then into the business world. If you think the name sounded familiar even on campus, Thrower Academic Achievement Center. This is him. We're going to have a great half hour here to visit. And to kind of keep it all tied together, we're going to try and do it in a timeline. And the timeline would start in the mid-'60s here in Commerce. Go to 1964. It was the end of segregation at this school. And African-American students would be allowed on campus as students shortly after that. In 1966, out of Camden, Arkansas, James Thrower arrived on campus first. And then not far behind him, John Carlos. And fellas, how did you get to Commerce? Jim, you were here first. Tell us how you were recruited from Camden.
Well, I was recruited on a basketball scholarship, and I was supposed to go to several schools in the SWAC conference, Southwest Athletic Conference, and that was contained really the majority of the African-American, or I should say black schools.
Sure.
Yep, Grambling, Arkansas A&M, Mississippi Valley,
Prairie View,
yeah, all
Texas
those,
Southern, right?
Texas Southern, yeah, Southern University,
and most of those are still in the SWAC today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, great players, and the majority of all the athletes, across the country who wanted to come to the SWAC conference because the larger schools, they were really not recruiting, and bringing black athletes in. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until later that they began to focus on African-American athletes.
It was a very, very fast come around to the way things are when teams needed speed,
yep.
strength, size,
yep.
and ability.
Yep.
How about you, John? How did you find out about East Texas State University?
Actually, I was running a track meet in New Jersey, and there was a young fella that went to school here named, I believe his name was Pete Peterson. He was a student here. He knew the track coach, and he saw me run. And he approached me and asked me, he said, man, you think about going to college? Well, I'm a thug out of New York. I don't know nothing about no college. But when he gave me that opportunity, I thought about my wife and my kid. Mm-hmm. I was young when I was married, my senior year in high school, and I like to tell everybody I was married because I was in love. My wife didn't get pregnant until after I got married, so it wasn't no shotgun wedding. But I went to her and I said, hey, baby girl, we got an offer to go to Texas to go to school. And I think it might be a great opportunity for us to raise our daughter outside of the city, because I received very good overture about when we travel, there's a bus, nice air conditioning bus, when the wife and the kids could go with you to the track meets and the whole 9 yards. And I said, that's great. So we talked, and eventually we came to a deal, and we decided to pack up and come here to East Texas State, right, which was very interesting.
Now, you gentlemen got to know each other rather quickly here on campus. You were always known as a runner. You, meanwhile, all around, you came here recruited to play basketball, but you said, well, I still got some football left in me. And, I can high jump, by the way.
Yep. Well, I guess I just had the ability to do different things, and praise the Lord that he gave me that athletic talent. And high jumping, I think I won third in the conference, 6'4" at that time on a
scissor kick?
Yeah, it was a scissor kick.
Okay.
And that's what it was. And then later the Flosberry flop, I think, came in. But I never learned how to do the Flosberry flop. So what happened, I got third in the conference on the high jump. But I also had a little speed with me. Of course, not as much as John had with him, but I ran the third leg in the 440 relay is what we call it at that
That's
time.
where the horse was.
Yeah.
Third leg was the horse,
Yeah.
man. You had to have your closer, but the third leg was a horse. What did you think about the facilities here? All running tracks at that time, almost all of them were still cinder.
Dirt or cinder. Some in California they had clay. I thought it was great facility that they had. The weather was ideal for competition. To run, you didn't have to worry about whether you're going to have a cool day. You can bet your money there's going to be a warm day. I like the stadium, the overture of the stadium, to be that many people could come in and watch you work out or what have you. But then I looked at it in terms of what do we have in terms of competitors on our side to represent ET as a strong unit. Because as James remembered, that we ran against Grambling and Texas Southern and Prairie View and all these guys, and they had stacked teams. So we had to try and make our team as stacked as possible. And I recall the first time we ran, they didn't know that we were here at East Texas State. The black athletes had come in. So they thought they had a slam dunk, Prairie View and the rest of them. And we came out and we kind of gave them a shock treatment. Now, we didn't know that Dipper at that particular time, I didn't know that Dipper had the abilities. But then I had an opportunity to watch him on the football field, and I said, man, this dude is the missing link for our relay. So then I approached Dipper to him and said, man, in between your football games, we would have track meets running the relay, and we love to have you come and run the relay with us. And the quite surprising thing and made us all happy is that he was delighted that we opened our arms and asked him to come with us. And it was just a marriage from that point on.
Yeah.
Any kind of welcome was good for everybody on this campus, right?
Absolutely.
And in those days, I mean, you're among the very first black student athletes to ever come to this campus.
Right.
And it had to be a little different. Talk the dorm. We mentioned a little bit about where you stayed on campus, what the campus life was like for you.
Well, when I first came, I came on a basketball scholarship, and Norm Pilgrim was the basketball coach at the time.
Okay.
And Fred Williams, who was also a basketball player, a black African-American basketball player, he and I was roommate, and they recruited him out of New York. And so we stayed in Craddock Hall, and that was really right across from Mr. M's a grocery store. Well, it was like a 7-Eleven, and it wasn't that far away. And of course, we walked across the I forget what you call that little scape of land. It was no buildings there at the time to get over to the sub, and then right across the street was the athletic department. So we had sort of a nice way to a walk, but we were athletes, and we just saw it as a way of staying in shape, and we didn't have any cars or anything at the time, so we walked the campus, and one of our main stops were what we call the sub, the Student Union building, and we would meet everybody there, and then we all became great friends, and it was another year had passed, and then Carlos, Coach Brown recruited John Carlos and Carl Richardson. And I think Dennis Dice came with you guys.
Dennis and I came in together.
Right.
But Delma recruited Carl Richardson and John Davis out of New York.
Right.
So in your 1 year here, John, the Lions win the Lone Star Conference Track Championship. That title in '67, they would not win another title for 48 years. Isn't that crazy? 2015 was the next track championship out of Lion U since 1967.
I think we opened Pandora's box when we went down for that championship, because they didn't expect East Texas State to be as strong as they were, because they were being introduced to us at that same year. But when we went down there and we showed our wares, I think what it did is step the other universities and colleges up. They had to step up their game. And when they did, remember, we were leaving at that time. I left East Texas State, and the track team didn't escalate it
Yep.
would have been on
Mhm.
time.
Right.
So consequently, that took that 20 years or so for us to come back to win a championship again.
Right.
It wasn't that they were any better than us. I think we were lacking what we exhibited earlier
Right.
that year that we won.
Absolutely.
You know,
Championship track teams, they just have to be well-rounded.
Right.
So
They do.
you
They
got to
do.
have your field guys and girls.
Yep.
You got to have
Yep.
your sprinters,
absolutely.
and you got to have your guys with endurance.
That's right.
When you left here after that one season to go out to San Jose State, the coach there was a big part of the reason that they got your attention.
No, you know what
Was
happened? I read track and field news. I got track and field news out of the old post office here, and I liked the fact they were running real well down there. But something caught my eye about them talking about a potential boycott of the Olympic Games. I didn't anticipate going to San Jose at the time, but I had gone there in 1965 when I was in San Diego for the national championship. And I heard about Speed City, so it's a young fella that used to run out of Southern University named George Anderson. We befriended one another, and we said, let's take a trip, because we were at the Nationals a little earlier. Let's take a trip down to San Jose, see what this Speed City is all about. And I recall when we went down there, they had Mr. Smith running some turns. And we were with our sweats on, and we approached Coach and said, Coach, you mind if we run some of these turns with your guys? And, you know, Big T, he said, sure, come on, get in. Well, George and I looked at each other. We was weighing Tommy out in the turn. He said, okay, guys, that's enough. So
Who are these guys?
so from there, I had no aspirations to go to San Jose State. I was actually back in New York when I left East Texas State. And I just happened to be helping my mother paint the kitchen. And the phone rang, and my mother answered it, and it was Professor Harry Edwards. Now, I met Professor Edwards when I was down there visiting the school. And he said to me, he said, John, what are you doing? I said, well, I just left East Texas State. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, man, I'm going to get a job because I got a wife and kid I got to take care of. He said, well, man, what do you think about coming to school in California? You know, there wasn't no plan to go to San Jose State. He made that offer. And then I said to my wife, I said, we had just got an offer to go to San Jose State. What do you think about that? She said, well, wherever you go, we go. And, you know, I showed my dimples when she said that.
Not
I was
bad.
smiling. I like that. But then I had a buddy of mine told me, he said, man, I don't know whether you should go to California. And I said, why? He said, you go to California, man, they're going to break up your marriage. You know, that Hollywood. I said, man, we're going to put that in the back burner. So that's basically how I got to San Jose State. It wasn't a plan. Maybe it wasn't my plan, but looked like it was the Lord's plan.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the Olympic players, and I'm trying to look at in my notes without throwing everything up in the air. The Organization for Human Rights, the Olympic Players for Human Rights. Am I getting it, the name of it right?
The Olympic Project for Human Rights.
The Olympic Project. Thank you. Tell everybody a little bit how that came to be, how you became involved in it, because you really are credited as being one of the founders of that,
Yes.
and how you got to be an Olympic athlete.
Well, what happened was when I went to San Jose State, as I stated, I met Tommy earlier, and they had the World Games, not the World Game, but the Student Games. I believe it was in Paris, and they wanted me to go, and I didn't go. But Tommy went, and in the interim, they asked him about the Olympic Games that was coming up, and said, we understand that you guys are talking about a potential boycott. And Tommy elaborated as best he could about the boycott and so forth. And then by the time I got there, they were pretty much organized. It's almost like they was the dynamite, but I was the wick that brought the fire to the dynamite.
Are you surprised by that, Jim?
No.
Okay. So when I got there, we running well as a team, as a unit. And then they started talking about more and more about the potential boycott of the games. But our aspiration was to make sure no matter what, whether they're going to have the games or not, we wanted to be on the top of our game. So we had a situation where we wanted to train, but even more so, we wanted to be in the library. And a lot of people get confused when I say we wanted to be in the library. We wanted to be in the library because we were very serious about the boycott, but at the same time, we knew how you going to project the boycott. And then when they start putting the microphone and the camera in your face and you can't
Really
enunciate
Right.
on why you think it's necessary for a boycott. So we had to go study and make sure that we was up to snuff. So when they did approach us, we could express on a sophisticated, intellectual level as to why we felt it was necessary to do the boycott. We didn't want to hurt America. Like I always use the metaphor that, we showed our love for America. We want America to show its love for us.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest is history relative to how we got out there and how we ran and how we try and recruit the young individual athletes to educate them. We didn't tell them, say, it's a mandate that you boycott the games. All we did was say, let's lay the cards on the table. You evaluate for yourself. Now, a lot of the guys understood and said it's necessary that a boycott come about, but yet and still, each and every one of us, from the time we knee-high to a grasshopper, they tell you, go to the Olympic Games, win a medal, represent America. So it's very difficult for anyone to come to these young individual athletes and say, hey, man, we think you guys should boycott. Although I understand what you're saying, but, John, I promised my kids I'm going to bring a medal home. My church is counting on me to bring a medal home. My community. And, man, I've been training for this. So it's very difficult for them to make that decision. We couldn't throw rocks at them because in hindsight now, many of them that walked away at one point or another after that time, they've come back and said, man, I think I made the wrong decision. I think I should have stuck with you in terms of trying to bring attention to the plight of people of color, to say all we want is a level playing field. We ain't asking for no more. Just give us an opportunity to open the door, and I'll get it myself.
Right.
There's a great story about all of that episode that was published in Sports Illustrated about 6 years ago, the 55th anniversary. And I was really impressed how much detail they went into. And the recurring theme that I saw was that you're trying to, this is what we want. We want black dignity.
That's exactly what it was.
That's not a tough ask. It shouldn't be. But it took a movement to express it.
Well, like if you're in pain, man, and you don't say anything about how are you going to cure yourself. Understand?
Absolutely right.
And it's a painful situation when you sit back and think about it. For instance, like I represent an institution. The institution is making a lot of money on me representing them. But yet and still, I'm still walking around with holes in my pocket. I'm still not being able to buy Pampers for my baby or put food in my baby's belly. And you have to think as a human being, something is wrong with this picture.
Absolutely.
And I want to bring it to attention. I'm not trying to throw rocks. I'm not trying to bring weapons in. All I'm doing is expressing myself. Now, you're going to tell me that I don't have the right to elaborate and denounce what's happening to me?
Right.
Now, you put the gloves on because we're getting ready to go to war with that.
Yes.
Jim, when he went away, goes to San Jose State, y'all were able to follow him a little bit, right?
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't instantaneous like, on your phone anymore.
No. Matter of fact, we didn't have phones back then.
No.
But, we would stay in contact with each other, I mean, when I said that we didn't have phones, I mean, we had phones, but we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
And so we was able to stay in contact with each other. And we was all a little surprised, but John was ahead of us in terms of what was really going on out there in that world, and we was pretty much sort of low-key focused in on just what they had presented in front of us. But John had a wider stage, and he knew what needed to be done in order that it would bring enough attention to what is happening in the college world or what is happening in the athletic world. And so he, Tommy Smith, and
Peter Norman.
Yep, Peter Norman. Yep. I mean, it just made a difference. Brought the attention to the stage that should have been brought there, years before. And I think it was one of the best time in athletics in America because it made a true statement and it opened the doors and people began to understand that much better.
1968 was one of the most incredible years, not just in athletic history in this country, but in this country's history.
Yeah.
And so much happened. When you were in Mexico, just weeks before the opener, they had La Noche Triste, which was the student, I don't want to say uprising, it was a student movement.
Mm-hmm.
And they had thousands of students that had gathered in one of the old neighborhoods by the church, the square, Tres Culturas, the Three Culture Square. And what ended up happening was the Mexican military, told to break them up, ended up killing hundreds.
Let me tell you what happened.
Hundreds.
If you notice, in the last 5 years or so, I think it was ABC had come out with a video relative to the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked one of the officials in the Olympics, one of the United States Olympic officials, are you guys coming to Mexico? Because, the boycott ran pretty high at the time.
Right.
And he made the statement, handle your business and we will be there. I think that was the signal to the military, okay? Because 2 days after he made that statement, they said they killed 50 people.
Wow.
Then
Yeah.
they came back and they said they killed 150 people. Then they came back and rounded off, they killed 500 people. But in actuality, they killed 2,200 people. They killed so many people until they took the bodies and they put them in the furnace where they burned the trash. They took bodies in there. And then when they couldn't put no more bodies in there, they took the rest of the bodies and took them on those cutters, them Coast Guard cutters, and took them out to the ocean and dumped the bodies there.
Wow.
Turned the guns on the rest of the students and told them, so y'all go up into the hills and don't come back down until these games are over. But think about this.
Very
All of
much
that-
a Tiananmen Square kind of
Tiananmen Square,
thing.
that's exactly
before
right.
Tiananmen Square.
But then you sit back and you say to yourself, say, with all the lives that was lost, the story was buried for the better part of 35 years.
Yep. Yep.
You tell someone
was.
about that, and even today, you mentioned it. Some people say, "Man, that didn't happen. I don't remember reading nowhere about that." But in actuality, they killed that many people.
Jim, did you see, were you watching on TV when he and Tommy Lewis and
Yes.
everybody ran?
Yeah, I most certainly did. And,
Do you remember where you were?
I mean, I was still here in East Texas, in '68, and I just thought that I said, excuse my accent, I said, damn, Los is out there on the edge, you know what I mean? And, I just, I was just amazed because what they was doing was incredible, and it really putting their life on the line, and but saying things and doing things that needed to be done to open the door for everybody to understand what we all were going through, and say it made the difference. And somebody, did you know Carlos? I said, yeah, I know him. I just said, damn, excuse my expression.
That's two.
Yeah, I said, but he's doing what needed to be done for all of us, and it really cracked the wall to say, hey, let's look at this again. And
You know what
yeah.
they said to me? They said to me, Carlos, you were serious.
Yeah.
You were serious then, and you was just as serious when you went to Mexico City.
Yep.
They said, man, where most people had the fear to cross the line, you crossed the line in college, but that was only local on the college level.
Right.
He said, you went on a world level and crossed the line.
Absolutely.
And, like they used to always ask me, say, well, what do you think you accomplished by doing what you're doing? I said, well, it's obviously I accomplished something. I say, because you never came and asked me a question like that before.
Yeah.
So I must have your attention.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's all we want to do is just shine light on the world. Just like when we go around the world and represent America in the military, or we represent them in the Olympics, we shine a light, man, on America, showing the world how great America is. But at the same time, if America want to put up that false pretense and then step on me at the same time, remember when I go to Europe, I don't go to Europe with an ET shirt on. They make me take my ET shirt and put it away and put a USA shirt on.
That's right.
I'm representing America,
That's
and
right.
I'm proud to represent America. But it looks like when I come home, America is not too proud of me. So we had to make America understand that what happened in the day, like my father was in the First World War, and I heard about stories of him in that war. And they used to tell me things like, John, things are moving. Give us time. You're going to have your day one day. Give us time. And I said to him, I said, you know something? That's the same statement that my father told me that you told him back in the 1900s. Okay?
Right.
My old man joined the military when he was 15 years old in the First World War.
Wow. World War One. Yep.
I don't mean to interrupt this, but let me ask you on the day of that great race.
Okay.
And Tommy Lewis came in first. Tommy Lewis,
Tommy
born
Smith, Tommy
Smith.
Tommy Smith, born in Clarksville, Texas, just up the road in Red River County.
Right.
Moved to California, but he came in first. Peter Norman, the speedy Australian, came in second,
Right.
and you came in third. So you had your podium spots that you needed for what you had planned.
Right.
And I'm just going to try, each of you on the podium. Well, let me back up because Peter had to get on the podium with you first. And you asked him 2 questions. And apparently he answered properly.
Yeah.
You wanted to know if he believed in human rights, which was part of your Olympic movement.
Right.
And you wanted to know if he believed in God.
Right.
And he answered affirmative to both.
Well, he told me that his mom and dad were, first of all, Salvation Armies all of his life.
Right, right.
And, of course, he believed in human rights and he believed in the Lord. But more so, I had met Peter in Australia. I had gone to Australia earlier than that. I think in 1965 I had gone to Australia. Now, I didn't meet him per se. Well, we was bosom buddies at the time. He was a competitor. But then I didn't see Peter from 65 until 68 at the Olympic Games itself. We were in the heat. I think the first heat we were in together. And I'm breezing through, breezing through the race. And I see him trying to make a charge towards the end. And I kind of like waved him off. Track athletes,
No, you're not passing me.
track athletes, we have that peripheral vision. So as I waved him off and I'm walking, he waved me off. And when he did that, I said, well, who is this dude? Okay. So what I liked about Peter, I liked the fact that he had spontaneity.
Right.
He was confident in himself.
Right.
And then at the same time, I was aware that he had the athletic wares. He was a strong athlete. Okay, so we going through the process, So when we made the final victory, and incidentally, just speak a little bit about the race. I gave the race away. I didn't go there to win a medal.
I've seen that.
I anticipated taking second, but when Tommy tried to act like he had a growing muscle pull and this and that, and I turned around, you see me turn around in the race, I'm turning around telling Tommy, if you want this medal, stop BSing and come on. He shot up on me so fast. So I'm just striding down the track, and I'm looking around and see where I am. And I forgot about Peter Norman until the last 10 meters of the race. And I said, oh, shit, Peter Norman. And when I turned my head around to the right, Peter was right there. See, Peter's race, the better part of his race was the last 20 meters. And when it dawned on me, he was right there. And I was disgusted until I went through the finish line and looked up at the clock and saw Tommy had run 19.8, Peter had run 20 flat, and I had run 20 flat. But I was jogging for 70 meters. So when I realized that I jogged that and I still ran 20 flat, I said I was right on point to run what I felt I was capable of running. I think if I'd have run the games at that particular time on a serious note, I'd have run 20.3 easy. I mean, not 20.3, but 19.3 easy.
Yep.
Let me ask, the time between the end of the race and the time to get on the podium, how much time did you have, you and Tommy and Peter, have to put all this together?
Well, Tommy and I actually had a discussion. I went to Tommy at the quarter semi and told Tommy that I was disenchanted about the fact that the boycott was called off, and I wanted to make a statement. What's your take? He said, I'm with you. Okay, when he said that, I said to him, I said, all right, well, what do you have to bring to the table? And he said that he had a black scarf and he had the gloves. I had the beads. And then we were wearing black socks already. And then I had a black sweater that I used to cover up my USA jersey. And then I broke from there and I went over to the practice track because that's where Coach Winters was, the coach that you were talking about. He was our coach, and I went to Coach Winters and I said, Coach, I got a dilemma. He looked at me and said, what's up, John? I said, I want to give this race to Tommy. I said, but I don't want him to think I'm no punk. And that's the exact way I expressed it to him. And Bud looked at me, he smiled, and he said, John, you've always been your own man. You're going to make the right decision. And when he said that, it kind of solidified in my mind that I was doing the right thing. So about that time, I turned around and I started going back to the track. The stadium was here, and the practice track is over here, just basically across the street. So on the way back, I stopped at the telephone, payphone, and I called back to the States. I called my boys and told them, say, don't make no bets. Because they've been making bets on me from high school. Don't make no bets. And they said, why? I said, because I'm undetermined as to how I'm going to run this race right now. And by the time I got back, I said, because Tommy agreed to make the statement, and he analyzes medals. Medal don't mean nothing to me. I give the medals to the girls all the time. So I said, why should I have a medal that has no value to me and take it away from somebody that's going to make a statement with me? So, all right, so we got everything set there. By the time we got to the tunnel, it roughly was maybe 45 minutes from that quarter semi to the final.
Right.
So then we made that statement. I went to Peter, and before we went out, I said to Pete, do you believe in human rights? And he, of course, would you like to win Olympic Project Olympic Project's badge? And he said, sure. And he started reaching for mine. I pat him on his hand. Get back, man. I'll get you one.
It was from a rower, wasn't it?
Well,
Somebody that was on the rowing team?
It was one of the guys on the Harvard rowing team. They were, at that time, they were hippies, or they called them beatniks back at that time.
Right.
And they understood what we were doing, what we were all about. So they had some buttons that Harry had made up for us, right? So I told one of them, they was up in the stand, just as we getting ready to go, I said, I need a button. They said, give me a button. And they looked at me and said, you got a button. And I said, yeah, but I need it for Peter. Excuse me. So they passed the button down. I put the button on Peter. Now, show you how sadistic people can be, or a nation can be. We went out there on that victory stand when the national anthem was played. We raised up and made our statement. Peter Norman didn't make one gesture other than stand at attention, respect our flag as well as his flag. But merely because he had that button on him, says Olympic Project for Human Rights, to say, I agree with these guys in terms of humanity. Why did Peter feel that way? He felt that way because he knew the struggles of the Aboriginal people in Australia. He said to me, he said, John, I can't do what you guys do because I'm not in that situation, but I understand the situation you're in based on the fact that I be trying to do what I can do to help the people of Australia, the Aboriginal people.
Solidarity.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So that's why I say Peter is a brother from another mother, and I always have love and admiration for him in my household, no doubt. So we went out there, and it was funny. It's almost like God said, you're in the right position. Peter was on the front podium, Tommy was in the middle podium, and I was the backup man. And it all went serene. It was just smooth sailing. And a guy asked me, a reporter asked me, as soon as we got off the stands, we got inside, he said to me, he said, I got two questions for you. Why didn't you have your uniform zipped up like everybody else? You look like you was out of protocol. And I said, I was out of protocol. I said, you asked a question, it's a very good question. I said, I dressed like that going to the victory stand. I had a black shirt, cover up my USA uniform. I said, why? Because I was ashamed of America. I felt America could do better. Okay? I said, and the second thing, while my jacket was zipped down and the collar was up, I said, because I wanted to represent people such as my mother and father, which are the blue-collar workers of this nation, that's always pushing the nation to be great, but never getting any acknowledgement for what they do. So that's why I was out there out of protocol with my jacket open and so forth. Right. So then we had the gloves to represent, you know.
Which one fit better? On his hand or yours? They weren't your.
They were Tommy's gloves.
Okay.
It was Tommy's gloves, but it was my idea in terms of how we was going to orchestrate things. And I told Tommy, you take what gloves is your glove, which one you want. So he was right-handed. So I got the left hand. And it's amazing that I got the left hand because somebody told me that I was a communist on him and his wife and his two daughters on the bus, athlete's bus. And me and my boy, Leon Coleman, he was on the Olympic team. We standing up talking. And this guy's talking about, you're a communist. You're a communist. So we kept on talking. I didn't know what he was talking about, who he was talking to, because he's standing up and his wife and his daughter sitting down in our seats. So I turned around and said, who are you talking to? He said, I'm talking to you. You're a communist. And I said, I'm a communist. And he kept saying it. So I made a gesture, turned my sweatpants down. I said, you want to see my badge? Something about my badge? And then it dawned on me, why is this guy calling me a communist? Because I had the left hand. The left hand up.
How did you and everybody you were watching that unfold on television react when you saw it? Could you believe it?
Not really at first, because, I didn't know what their plan was, of course, you know. And just like all of America, when I saw Tommy and Los fists went up, I just said, damn, he must, I mean, he is doing what he's believe in, and if he's doing what he's believe in, he's looking out for everybody, and making a statement. So I just said, I mean, that was a statement. I said, whoa, Los, you're going to have some hot water to walk in. But he had always been that type of athlete. I mean, if you're a winner, you're a winner in every direction that you go, and he brought that attention to America. And it was what he and Tommy Smith that's what I was saying that was what they was known for, bringing attention to America because they was great athletes, and that attention was brought to America. And hey, I couldn't say nothing but yeah, I'm glad they did bring that attention to America.
Let me
just say one thing.
Yeah?
To what he's talking
Say
about.
one thing.
When I was a kid, I was like 7, 8 years old, and God gave me a vision, a premonition, or whatever you call it. But I saw myself on a wall as a little kid, 7, 8 years old, on a grass field, standing on a box. No one out there but me. And I could hear all the voices, yippee-ki-yay with excitement. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. And it dawned on me, I guess maybe 10, 15 seconds or so, that they're applauding for me because there's nobody out there but me. So when they were applauding, as a little kid, when you think you did something to make adults feel good, you feel good. You stick your chest out. And I went to wave. And, you would, as a little kid, when you would wave, you go get up on your toes because you want everybody to see you. And when I put my hand up, I went to wave like this. But when I got my hand up to wave, it locked just like this. And all the yippee-ki-yay went immediately to booing, throwing shit, spitting, telling me where to go. Scared me to death. When I went to dinner that night, I was still in a state of shock. My father said, Johnny, what's the matter? I said, Daddy, I was in a movie. And he said to me, what do you mean you was in a movie? What happened? I said, everybody was happy about something I did, and then they got mad at me, and they started calling me names and spitting at me, telling me where to go. And my father brought me into his rib cage. He said, son, nobody's going to bother you. I said, my job is to love you, protect you, house you, feed you, and see that you get a good education. Nobody's going to bother you. And he brought me in, he leaned over my head. He said to my muzzle, he said, Vi, it looked like God's got something special for this kid. We have to wait. And I don't know what day that was, but it almost made me think it was the exact same date, 15 years later. Because by that time, I was 23 years old. And when I got up there, man, that's the first thing I thought about. Oh, my God, this is the vision that I had when I was a kid. Because the exact same thing that happened when I was in that kid in that vision happened on that victory stand in Mexico.
Wow. Guys, there's so much we can talk about. Jim, let's break from running for a moment. Okay. Jim, talk about after Commerce for you. 3 years with the Philadelphia Eagles, another year with the Detroit Lions. And the 70s. Was there a better era to play in the NFL?
Well, I think that was a great opportunity for me and a lot of other players that went to professional ball in the 1970s. I had a chance to go to the Eagles as a free agent, made the team. Matter of fact, Los was also there. We was there at the same time with the Eagles. And, hey, to break into pro ball, is saying that you have made a step above college. And so, everybody recognized that, whether you sitting on a bench or whether you starting or, whether you're on injured reserve, you've made that step, and you bring attention not only to yourself but to your school, to your hometown, to your church, everybody, because what you are doing, you're representing America, and that's what it's all about. And so it was a great opportunity, and I just thought I was in the right place at the right time.
Being an Eagle and me being, born and raised a Dallas Cowboys fan, it was probably kind of tough when you came to Texas, wasn't it?
It was no doubt. Dallas had the best team, and the Eagles, we were growing at the time, but it gave us an opportunity to break into the world of professional football. And once we got there, we understood what it was all about. So we had an opportunity to sharpen our tools, and as we sharpened our tools over the years, I ended up with Detroit, and for all the right reasons, I made it to Detroit and put another 3 years in Detroit. And, hey, so that that worked out good for me in the long run.
And your very last game
Mm-hmm.
was against your first team, the
Yes.
Eagles. It's funny how it all comes around that way.
It does. It does. And that's the way the picture was supposed to be. You
Mhm.
know, and it just worked out that way. And
What from athletics
mhm.
was part of your backbone, part of your makeup that got you into the corporate world and then out as an entrepreneur and a franchisee?
Well, one of the things that I know that we said during my athletic career, uh, you know, strive hard to be superior. If you fail, it'll be mere excellence. And so, with that mentality, going into the corporate world, I wanted to take the same spirit into the corporate world that I had in ball, and the competitive nature. I
Mhm.
wanted to be the best franchise that there was,
Mhm.
and in that particular city, in that particular state. And if you do that, then people really want to come and support your store. I'll go by Mr. John's store to go to Mr. Jim's store because they really give the service. They got the right people there.
Mhm.
They tell you to please come again. So that was our mentality. And I passed that mentality on to my staff and to others. Anytime you're on the field or wherever you are in life, give it your best shot. When you give it your best shot, it'll make a difference in the long run.
Obviously at Philadelphia it was the Irsay family, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ownership group, and then with McDonald, I mean, surely you met Ray Kroc and
Ah.
talked a little bit of sports with him at some point in time.
I met Ray Kroc, but I just sort of shook his hand because he would come by and talk to franchisees,
Mhm.
And the thing about it, I got a chance to meet him and just listen to a lot of his speeches. And hey, he was a man that had the vision of the future. Not only for McDonald's, but anybody that was going in any type of industry. You just get some of the solid things that he said, and you put it to work that particular way, and you work hard at it. You can make good things happen for yourself, And Ray Kroc was the man that discovered the McDonald's franchises, and hey, look, there are tens of thousands of stores all across the country now, all across the world, And if you become a McDonald's operator, you're as fortunate. And when I say you're fortunate, not only will you be able to grow your franchises, but your kids and your kids have an opportunity to grow into the McDonald's operation too. And it's just working hard at it, stretching, reaching, touching people, just make all the difference in the world.
Did you know ahead of time, had you just seen in the media about the statue that they were going to put up at San Jose State about Tommy Smith and John Carlos?
I mean, I heard about it, and I said, wow, I think that was one of the best things that they could have done because that particular era, um, we were breaking out. When you look back, integration and all that was just happening, and we needed the attention as Black Americans, as African Americans, to say, hey, this is the direction we should go. These are the goals that we should reach for. We want to be leaders as well as some have to be followers, but if we can be leaders, we can help to decorate the world the way that we think that it also, should be decorated in a very pleasant way.
Think about the era that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the mere fact that when you was in football, we was in football together.
Mm-hmm.
You think a black man is, for instance, the man that we met at the breakfast this morning.
Right.
To be a black quarterback.
Yeah.
And then in college and say I did a great job in college.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to professional football, they turn you from a black quarterback to a black defensive back.
Absolutely.
Or a wide receiver.
Yep.
Because they believe that blacks didn't have the mentality to lead the teams.
To be a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Like Roy Campanella said in baseball, they just don't have that ability. So these are the type of things that we need to water down and let it run off into the drain to make people have a new paradigm in terms of what it stands for. And you talk about the statues at San Jose State, they didn't particularly want the statues there. I say faculty.
Okay.
You know, they was talking about, well, yeah, they're going to build a statue. It wasn't the faculty or administration that did this. The student body did this. They went and they raised the money. What happened? They had a crochet that used to be in the student body building. And they were saying, well, don't we have anything to recognize John Collins and Tommy Smith? And they brought them to the student union, showed them the little two of us on that little crochet they had. And they had a big crochet. And they said, that's all they have to recognize them? So there was a white student there, very sharp. He said, well, we have to do something about that. And there was a professor there on the campus, and he told him, yeah, well, I know these guys. And it wasn't Harry, it was another professor. And he said to him, he said, they sit in my class. You know, they was probably sitting in the same seats you guys are in. And he told them what they need to do. So they decided we were going to go out and we're going to raise the money. We ain't asking faculty for anything. They raised the money, I think it was $280,000 to build those statues. Okay? But when they built the statues, they needed a location to put them. So they were talking about first we're going to put them out in the front area of the campus for shade. Oh, you can't put it here because the electrical wire's under the ground. We can't put it here. We're going to put it over here. Oh, you can't put it over here. And then they say, well, we'll put it out where the athletic field is because they had a new athletic complex. Oh, we don't want it over here. And it wound up, it's just ironic. Where I said we used to go to the library and study. Right there where that library is like here's the library over here. They put the statue right out in front, and right over here was the tower for the president's office.
All
the president told me, we can
Let him look at it every day.
So that was monumental.
Right.
But what really came full circle is when the man came to me and told me, he said, John, we would like to put your statue in the Smithsonian at the Black History Museum that you built in D.C. It just choked me up because I thought about my mom and my dad. You know, I remember my dad was leaving this world, and he said to me, he said, John, he had tears in his eyes. I said, Daddy, what you crying for? He said, because I'm leaving this world, and I did a lot of things in my life. He said, here at 23 years old, you didn't surpass me. I said to him, but Daddy, that's a good thing. He said, no, I'm not crying about that. He said, I'm crying because I'm getting ready to die, and I don't have anything to leave you. And I looked at my father and I said, Daddy, you left me the greatest thing ever. He said, what's that? I said, you left me the Carlos name. I said, I'll put the name up in lights.
That's right.
So when they talk about putting it in the Smithsonian, like my heart just almost about to bust with pride. And when they built it there, I said, now, wherever my mother and father are in spirit, they will always have the pride. Thing about me, remember, I wasn't like my brothers and sisters. I was always in the street. I was going to be the thug. I'm the gangster, this, that, and the other. But see, I converted from gangster in the street to gangster of love. I had love for humanity.
You and Steve Miller.
Right. There you go.
All right, I got to ask this, and we're running out of time.
Okay.
You guys have been so gracious today. I want to ask about the statue, and I thought this was brilliant. They have Tommy, they have you, and then the empty podium spot where Peter would have been.
Right.
You were not happy about that, and you called him to tell him how upset you were and tell everybody how he responded and how it works.
First, I was upset with the school. Why isn't Peter there? So they ran around. They finally came back and told me, well, John, Peter's not there because he didn't want to be there. That's when I marched from over there where Harry's office was. I marched to the president's office. And I said, Dr. Clark, I need to make a long-distance call. And he said, long-distance? I said, yeah, a long-distance call. So I called Peter's house. Sure enough, Peter picked up the phone. I said, Pete, so what's going on? Who is this? I said, it's Carlos. Hey, Carlos, you blame me. How you doing? And I said, man, I'm not too happy right now. He said, what's the matter? I said, man, I understand that you didn't want your statue put up there. And he said, nah, John, he said, it's not that I didn't want my statue put there. He said, I felt that it was necessary to leave that place open because I didn't do what you did. I supported what you did. He said, so I felt that mine should be left vacant so anyone that comes from anywhere in the world and come to San Jose State, they can stand in my spot and take a picture in support of this particular demonstration. And I thought that was the largest thing I ever heard in my life. It was enormous. It's still enormous to me because most people's egos would never allow them to say, I'm going to take myself down from that to let some others step up. Big.
That is big. That's huge.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You know, that's why I said, Peter was legit.
Yep.
And you have to think outside this world and say it's got to be a creator, a mastermind to choose not just a white individual, but a white individual that had clairvoyancy and had heart and the initiative to say, I want justice and equality for all individuals
people.
the same as you.
Right. That was fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yep.
We are running so far out of time. I think we're holding them off at the doors, guys. We got to spend more time together, though. Come up at halftime. We're playing. You know, we got the G-men in town. Grambling's here. First HBCU opponent here against the Lions in this Division I era. First time ever. But it's going to be a dandy.
It's going to be a great game, but unfortunate. Grambling has to lose, but fortunate for us.
That's right. That's right.
There you go.
Hey, I
Thanks,
got the ring of destiny. You know, we're
That's
good.
right. That's right. We'll do that.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much
thank you
for
so
your
much
time.
for having us,
Carlos.
Yeah.
You know, you think of all the greats from the '68 Olympics. I was 7 years old.
Come on, man.
I'm not trying.
I wasn't but 11 myself.
I have big brothers. That's right.
There.
You're the age of my older brothers.
Okay.
There it is.
And
I
that's
want to
the
get
context.
that too. All right.
Yes.
Right on time.
And, you know, Al Order over there winning his 4th gold medal in the discus.
That's right.
George Foreman winning a gold in boxing.
Yeah.
Let's see, who else? Oh, yeah, Dick Fosbury, whom I met in the
Fosbury,
elevator and saw him, and we talked a
Yeah.
little bit about that. And, you know, and then, Bob Beeman. He only jumped to the moon that day, didn't he?
That's my brother. You're not training Bob for that jump.
Did you really?
Well, not so much training in terms of the jump is what it is. Bob and I grew up together. We came in track and field together. And I told Bob at the trial, I said, man, you almost didn't make the team. I said, you lacking something. He said, what's that? I said, man, you ever seen a plane go down the runway crawling? I said, you run down the runway with speed. I said, the plane goes down the runway with speed because it has to have that speed to lift that weight, that body weight. I said to him, so you going to train with me when we get to Mexico. So it was me, Ronnie Ray Smith, and Leon Coleman. We all 4 out there training. And I told him, I said, every time somebody jumped the gun, you're going to give me 15 push-ups. So he got disciplined. Bob got in such shape, he felt like man, you can beat me in the sprint. I told him, I said, whoa, bro, slow your roll.
I can run, but I can't jump.
So when I got him to the point where he could run fast, I told him, I said, now go to Ralph Boston to let Ralph help you get your steps down.
Yep.
And when he made the jump, Tommy and I were up in the BBC box, the British Broadcast Company.
Yeah.
And we didn't know at that time about metrics. All we knew about was yards. So when Bob made the jump, he had jumped one time and he jumped over 30 feet.
Right.
It was a scratch.
Right.
So when he jumped, I knew what a world record marker was, and he done surpassed that big time.
Yeah.
But
Nothing but a shadow flying over it.
Everybody went crazy.
Crazy.
We sitting there like dummies. We don't know what's going on. All we know he broke the record.
Yeah.
And then they looked and said, oh, you buy me markers. You don't know the metric system. Let me tell you what he jumped.
Yeah.
Okay? But when we found out that he had jumped, and I was telling them ahead of time, if you think Lee Evans did something by running 43, wait until Bob run. And the funny thing is, it was raining.
Yep.
When Bob got on the head of the runway, the rain stopped. God opened up the clouds. The sun shined down on Bob. He took off, and just as he hit the pit, the clouds closed back up, and the rain came back.
Yep.
That was time enough.
That was time.
And we've run out of time. Fellas, let's line up here, folks, for everybody. Thanks again. I'm Charlie Chitwood. I have John Carlos, and I
Jim
have
Thrower.
Jim Thrower. What a great afternoon. Thanks for watching,
Fantastic.
everybody.
We love you.
Yep, we do.